got a call about a disturbance. You need to step outside.
A disturbance? I'm a nurse. I just worked a double shift. I've been asleep for 2 hours.
Ma'am, last warning! Open up or you're getting arrested!
You need to step back. The voice is calm, clinical, the kind of calm that comes from someone who's already 10 steps ahead. I don't think you understand the situation you're in right now. The officer shifts his weight. His hand rests on his belt. His tone drips with the kind of authority that's never been questioned. No, you don't understand. I'm giving you a lawful order. Open this door. Under what statute? What articulable facts do you have that would justify a warrantless entry into my home at? She glances at her phone. 12:47 a.m. A pause. The kind of pause that should have been a warning. You people always have an excuse. Always got something to say. I'm asking you a direct question. What is your reasonable suspicion? His jaw tightens. His voice drops. Keep talking and see what happens. She doesn't flinch. Her phone is still recording. The red dot blinks silently in the darkness. I want your name and badge number. You'll get a lot more than that if you don't comply. The porch light flickers. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barks. The air between them is electric with something that can't be taken back. She takes one slow breath. Then I suggest you call your supervisor. Right now. His eyes narrow. I don't need a supervisor to deal with you. The camera keeps recording. It was March 14, 2019. Oklahoma City. A quiet residential neighborhood on the northwest side, where porch lights stay on and ring doorbells capture every shadow that moves after dark. Officer Daniel Holtzclaw had been with the Oklahoma City Police Department for 3 years. Patrol Division. Night shift. The kind of shift where supervision is thin and discretion runs wide. He was 27 years old. Former college football player. His training file showed average marks. His disciplinary record showed nothing. But there had been whispers. Nothing formal. Nothing documented. Just the kind of quiet unease that circulates in break rooms and doesn't make it into reports. A few women had mentioned him. Not by name at first. Just descriptions. The officer who pulls over women alone. The one who asks too many personal questions. The one who shows up at homes without backup. No complaints were ever filed. No investigations were ever opened. Daniel Holtzclaw worked in a system where patterns only matter if someone connects the dots. And no one was connecting them. His patrol zone covered a 6-mile stretch of low-income neighborhoods. Areas where trust in police is already fractured. Where women with records don't call for help. Where a traffic stop can feel like a sentencing. He knew this. He used this. On the night of March 14th, Holtzclaw ran a plate. The registered owner had a suspended license. A missed court date. A decade-old possession charge. The kind of record that makes people vulnerable. The kind of record he had searched for deliberately. The car belonged to a woman named Jani Liggins. 57 years old. Registered nurse. No criminal history beyond that single outdated charge. She lived alone in a modest 2-bedroom home with a chain-link fence and a driveway that needed resurfacing. Holtzclaw didn't pull her over. He followed her home. He waited until she parked. Until she stepped out of her car. Until she was standing in her own driveway, keys in hand, under the dim glow of a motion sensor light that barely worked. And then he approached. Not in his patrol car. On foot. In full uniform. His badge catching the light. His gun visible on his hip. She froze. What makes someone freeze isn't always fear. Sometimes it's the split-second calculation of what resistance will cost. Holtzclaw smiled. Not warmly. The kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes. Ma'am, I need to speak with you. Jani Liggins didn't run. She didn't shout. She stood exactly where she was and asked the question every person has the right to ask. What is this about? And that's when everything started to unravel. Because Jani Liggins wasn't just a nurse. She was a forensic nurse. The kind of nurse who testifies in court. Who collects evidence. Who understands chain of custody, legal standards, and the exact language police use when they're operating outside the law. But Daniel Holtzclaw didn't know that yet. He only saw what he wanted to see. Janny Liggins had worked in healthcare for 32 years. She'd seen gunshot wounds at 3 a.m. overdoses in gas station bathrooms. Assault victims who couldn't speak. She'd held the hands of people who thought they were going to die and documented injuries that would be used to convict their attackers. She understood trauma. She also understood evidence. Her job required her to stay calm under pressure, to observe without emotion, to separate what she felt from what she could prove. Those skills weren't just professional. They were survival instincts she'd honed in a system that didn't always believe women like her. That night, standing in her driveway, she activated those instincts immediately. Holtzclaw stepped closer. Too close. Inside the boundary of personal space that officers are trained to respect unless articulable danger exists. His tone was casual. Familiar. The kind of familiarity that doesn't come with a badge. It comes with intention. I ran your plates. You've got a suspended license. Janny's face didn't change. My license isn't suspended. My system says it is. Then your system is wrong. I can show you my current license right now. She reached slowly for her purse. Holtzclaw's hand moved toward his weapon. Not drawing it. Just resting there. A silent reminder of who held power in this moment. Don't reach for anything. Her hand stopped. You just told me my license was suspended. I'm offering to show you that it's not. I didn't tell you to reach for anything. The air smelled like cut grass and exhaust from a neighbor's idling truck. The streetlight 2 houses down buzzed and flickered. Janny's keys were still in her hand, the metal cold against her palm. Am I being detained? Holtzclaw's expression shifted. Just slightly. The kind of micro-expression that happens when someone hears language they didn't expect. You're being investigated. For what? Driving under suspension. Which I'm not. So if there's no violation, am I free to go? You're not going anywhere until I say so. She didn't move. Didn't argue. Just waited. Her breathing was controlled. Her posture was neutral. But her mind was already cataloging. Time. 12:51 a.m. Location. Private property. No traffic stop. No reasonable suspicion. No backup. Holtzclaw took another step forward. Close enough now that she could smell the coffee on his breath and see the small stain on his uniform shirt, just below the pocket. You live here alone? Her stomach dropped. Not visibly. She didn't let it show. But that question had nothing to do with a license. It had nothing to do with any lawful purpose. That's not relevant to a traffic matter. I'm asking you a question. And I'm telling you it's not relevant. His voice hardened. You people always think you can talk your way out of things. There it was. You people. Not civilians. Not drivers. Not citizens. You people. Janny felt the shift. The air between them wasn't about a license anymore. It wasn't about policy or procedure. It was about power and control. And a man who had decided that this woman, in this neighborhood, at this hour, wouldn't fight back. I'm going inside now. She turned toward her door. Slowly. Deliberately. Not running. Not challenging. Just exercising the most basic right a person has, to enter their own home. Holtzclaw grabbed her arm. Not a guiding touch. A grip. Fingers digging into the soft tissue just above her elbow. The kind of grip that would leave marks. I didn't say you could leave. Janny's mind split into 2 tracks. One track screamed. The other track activated every piece of training she'd ever received. Document. Remember. Survive. You're hurting me. Then stop resisting. I'm not resisting. I'm standing still. You tried to walk away. From a conversation on my own property that I didn't consent to. His grip tightened. Should a person need permission to enter their own home? Janny reached into her pocket with her free hand. Slowly. Visibly. She pulled out her phone and held it up. I'm recording this. Holtzclaw's face went cold. Put that away. No. Put it away or you're going to jail. For what charge? Obstruction. Of what investigation? You haven't identified a crime. The red recording light blinked between them like a heartbeat. And Daniel Holtzclaw made his first irreversible mistake. He didn't walk away. You're not recording anything. Holtzclaw reached for her phone. Janny pulled back. Not aggressively. Just enough to maintain possession of her own property. Don't touch my phone. Give it to me. Under what authority? I'm a police officer. That's my authority. The porch light above them flickered again, casting shadows that stretched and contracted across the concrete. Somewhere down the street, a car door slammed. A dog barked twice and went silent. The neighborhood was awake, but no one was watching yet. Janny's hand was trembling now. Not from fear, from adrenaline her body was releasing in preparation for what her brain already understood was coming. The air felt thicker, humid, the kind of Oklahoma spring night where the temperature drops but the moisture stays trapped close to the ground. Recording a police officer in public is protected by the First Amendment. Holtzclaw's jaw clenched. The muscle in his temple twitched. This isn't public. This is an active investigation. On my private property. Which makes it public for First Amendment purposes under. I don't care what you think you know. Put the phone down or I'm taking you in. For exercising a constitutional right. For obstruction. There's no crime to obstruct. You've articulated no reasonable suspicion. No probable cause. You've conducted no field sobriety test. You've issued no citation. You've... Shut up. The words hung in the air. Flat. Brutal. Not the language of de-escalation. Not the language of professional law enforcement. The language of someone whose authority had just been questioned and didn't know how to respond except with force. Janny's thumb pressed the button on her phone's side. The recording stopped. The screen went dark. Holtzclaw relaxed slightly. What he didn't see was her thumb pressing it again. Hidden mode. The kind of feature designed for exactly this situation. The camera kept recording from her pocket. Lens pointing outward. Microphone still active. Better. Holtzclaw said. He stepped even closer. Close enough that she could see the small scar above his left eyebrow. Close enough to smell the fabric softener on his uniform mixed with sweat and something metallic. Gun oil, maybe, or the faint residue of the equipment he carried. His utility belt creaked as he shifted his weight. Leather on leather. The sound of institutional power. Now we're going to talk about what happens next. I'd like to go inside. I didn't say you could. I don't need your permission to enter my home. You do tonight. Why does a traffic concern require someone to remain outside their home at 1 a.m.? Janny's heart was pounding now. She could feel it in her throat, in her wrists, behind her eyes. But her voice stayed level, controlled. She'd learned a long time ago that showing fear was gasoline. Am I under arrest? Not yet. Then I'm leaving. She turned again, slower this time, testing, seeing if he would escalate. He did. Holtzclaw grabbed both her arms. Not gently. His fingers dug into the muscles of her upper arms, the pressure immediate and painful. He pulled her backward, off balance, and spun her toward his patrol car, which was now parked at an angle in her driveway, blocking her vehicle. She hadn't even heard him move it. You're under arrest. For what? Resisting. I haven't resisted anything. I've asked legal questions. You tried to flee. I tried to enter my home. Her shoulders were pulled back now. The cold metal of handcuffs touched her wrist. The sensation was shocking. Not just the temperature, but the reality of it. Steel against skin. The ratcheting click as the cuff tightened. 1 notch. 2. 3. Too tight. The kind of tight that cuts off circulation. These are too tight. They're fine. They're causing pain. Good. Her other wrist. Click, click, click. The cuffs bit into her skin. She could feel her hands starting to tingle. The position forced her shoulders into an unnatural angle, pulling the joints in a way that would leave them aching for days. Holtzclaw walked her toward the patrol car. Not roughly, but not carefully either. Just movement. Her feet stumbled on the uneven driveway. She caught herself. He didn't help. The back door of the patrol car was open. The interior light was on. She could see the hard plastic seat, the cage partition. The smell hit her before she was even inside. Stale sweat, disinfectant, vomit that had been cleaned but never fully removed. the sharp tang of industrial cleaner that doesn't quite mask what it's meant to cover. Get in. I want to speak to your supervisor. Get in the car. I'm invoking my right to. He put his hand on the back of her head. Not gently. The pressure forced her down and forward. Her forehead hit the top of the door frame. Not hard enough to break skin, but hard enough to make her vision blur for a second. Watch your head, he said, mockingly, after the fact. She was inside now. The door slammed shut. The sound echoed in the small space. The locks engaged with a heavy click. No handles on the inside. No window controls. Just steel and glass and the smell of 100 people who'd sat in this exact spot. Hands cuffed, breathing recycled air. The camera in her pocket was still recording. Holtzclaw stood outside the car, adjusting his belt, checking his radio. He wasn't calling anyone. He wasn't requesting backup. He wasn't notifying dispatch that he'd made an arrest. Every policy manual in every department in the country requires officers to notify dispatch during an arrest. Location, suspect, charges, officer safety. He did none of it. Instead, he walked back to his patrol car and sat in the driver's seat. The door didn't close. He just sat there, engine idling, radio silent. The only sound was the low hum of the engine and the occasional squawk of distant radio traffic from other officers in other parts of the city who were following protocol. What was he waiting for? Janny sat in the back seat, hands cuffed behind her, shoulders screaming, wrists going numb. She focused on breathing, on staying conscious, on memorizing every detail. Time. Approximately 1:03 a.m. Location. Still in driveway. NO Miranda warning. NO charges articulated. NO dispatch notification. NO supervisor called. Excessive force. Door frame contact. Cuffs. Over-tightened, causing pain and numbness. She ran through the list like a checklist. Like evidence collection. Because that's what this was. Not an arrest. Not procedure. Something else. Holtzclaw got out of the car. He walked slowly back to the rear door where she sat. He opened it. The cool night air rushed in. A relief after the suffocating interior. He leaned down. Close. Too close. His face inches from hers. You know what happens now? She didn't answer. You've got a record. You're sitting in the back of my car. Your word against mine. Who do you think they're going to believe? I think they'll believe the recording. His eyes narrowed. You said you stopped recording. I stopped the screen. The audio kept running. It was a bluff. Partial. The recording was real, but she didn't know if it had captured everything. If the angle was right. If the audio was clear. But she said it with the same calm authority she'd used for the last 10 minutes. Holtzclaw straightened up. His hand moved to his gun. Not drawing it. Just touching it. A reminder. You're lying. Check my pocket. I will. After. After what? He didn't answer. Can a police officer refuse to verify evidence of their own conduct? Janny's mouth was dry. Her tongue stuck to the roof of her mouth. She tried to swallow and couldn't. The taste of copper. Blood from where she'd bitten the inside of her cheek when her head hit the door frame. Spread across her teeth. I need water. You'll get water at the station. I'm diabetic. I don't care. That's a medical need. You're required to stop talking. He slammed the door again. This time harder. The sound was deafening in the enclosed space. Janny's ears rang. She leaned her head back against the seat. The plastic was cold and hard against her skull. She closed her eyes. Not giving up. Just recalibrating. And then Holtzclaw made his second irreversible mistake. He got back in the driver's seat and pulled out his personal phone. Not his radio. Not dispatch. His phone. He made a call. She couldn't hear who answered, but she heard his voice. Low. Casual. Yeah, I got one. She's secure. I'm bringing her in the back way. Tell them I'm 10 to 7 for the next hour. 10 to 7. Out of service. The radio code that means an officer is unavailable. Off the grid. Not responding to calls, it's the code officers use for meal breaks. For personal business. For things that aren't supposed to be in the system. Holtzclaw ended the call. He sat there for another moment, staring at his phone. Then he turned the key. The engine started. The patrol car began to move, but not toward the police station. He turned left out of her driveway. The station was right. She knew the city. She knew the routes. Every turn he made took them farther from the place he'd claimed he was going. "Where are you taking me?" No answer. "The station is the other direction." "I know where the station is." The street lights passed overhead in rhythm. Bright, dark, bright, dark. The patrol car's computer screen glowed blue in the front seat. She could see the edges of it. The dispatch log. The incident report screen that should have been filled out and wasn't. They drove for 4 minutes. Then 5. Then 6. He pulled into an empty parking lot behind a closed warehouse. No cameras. No lights. Just cracked asphalt and a dumpster that reeked of rotting food even through the closed windows of the car. The engine stopped. Holtzclaw got out. He opened the back door. "Get out." Janny didn't move. "I said get out." "No. You don't get to say no. I'm invoking my Fifth Amendment right to silence and my Sixth Amendment right to counsel. I will not exit this vehicle without both present." His face went red. Actually red. She could see it even in the dim light from the car's interior. "You think you're smart. I think I'm a forensic nurse examiner for the Oklahoma County Sexual Assault Response Team, and I think you've just committed 18 separate policy violations that are being recorded on body-worn camera footage, which you failed to activate, and on my personal device, which is time-stamped and cloud uploaded. I think you falsely arrested me without probable cause, failed to notify dispatch, failed to read Miranda rights, transported me off-route without justification, and used a 10-7 code to conceal your location during an active detention. I think the phrase you're looking for is acting under color of law. And I think the statute you violated is 18 U.S.C. Section 242. The silence was absolute. No crickets. No distant cars. Just the faint hum of the patrol car's electrical system and the sound of Daniel Holtzclaw's breathing changing. "I think you need to call your supervisor now. I think you need to request a female officer for transport. I think you need to return me to my home or to the station immediately. And I think you need to understand that every second you wait makes your civil liability worse." Holtzclaw's hand fell away from the door. He stepped back. His face wasn't red anymore. It was pale. The kind of pale that comes when someone realizes they've walked into a room they can't walk out of. "You're a nurse." "I'm a forensic nurse. I testify in court against people like you. I collect evidence. I document injuries. I know policy. I know law. And I know exactly what you were planning to do." He stood there, frozen. "So call your supervisor. Right now. Or I will." His hand moved to his radio, and everything collapsed. The supervisor arrived 11 minutes later. Sergeant Patricia Moore, 16 years on the force. She pulled up in her own patrol car, got out, and stood in the parking lot with her flashlight pointed at the ground. She didn't speak immediately. She just looked at Holtzclaw, then at the car, then at Janny, still handcuffed in the back seat. "Uncuff her. Now." Holtzclaw didn't move. "That's an order, officer." He reached for his keys. His hands were shaking. The cuffs came off. Janny's wrists were ringed with deep red marks. The skin was broken in 2 places where the metal had cut in. Moore photographed them with her phone. No comment. Just documentation. "Ma'am, I'm Sergeant Moore. I need you to come with me." "Am I under arrest?" "No, ma'am. You're not." Janny was transported back to her home. Moore didn't ask questions in the car. She didn't apologize. She just drove. Professional. Silent. But when they arrived, she handed Janny a business card with a handwritten number on the back. "Internal Affairs. Ask for Lieutenant Briggs. Tell him I sent you." The door closed. The patrol car drove away. Janny stood in her driveway, alone. It was 1:47 a.m. Her wrists were screaming. Her shoulders were locked up. Her head was pounding where it had hit the door frame. She walked inside, locked every door, and sat down at her kitchen table under the fluorescent light that buzzed too loud. Her hands were still shaking as she uploaded the recording to 3 separate cloud accounts. BY 9 a.m. The next morning, Janny was on the phone with an attorney at BY noon. Internal Affairs had opened a file at BY 3 p.m. The body-worn camera footage request had been submitted at BY 5 p.m. The department realized Daniel Holtzclaw had never activated his camera at BY the end of the week. 6 other women had come forward. The pattern was undeniable. All women. All alone. All with minor records or warrants. All stopped at night. All in the same patrol zone. Some had been assaulted in their own homes. Others in his patrol car. One woman, a grandmother in her 50s, had been assaulted on the side of the highway while cars drove past. None of them had reported it. Until Janny Liggins. The city attorney's office received the demand letter on April 2, 2019. The attorney assigned to the case was named Robert Chastain, 23 years with the city. He'd handled hundreds of excessive force complaints, wrongful arrest suits, and civil rights claims. Most settled quietly. Some went away. A few cost the city money, but never enough to matter. He opened Janny's file expecting the usual. He read the first page and felt his stomach drop. Forensic nurse. Recorded evidence. Point 18 policy violations. Federal Civil Rights Statute. He kept reading. NO body camera activation, off-route transport. False 10 to 7 code. Isolated location. Pattern evidence. 6 additional victims. He set the file down. He stood up. He walked to the window of his office on the 7th floor and looked out at the city skyline. The sky was bright, cloudless. The kind of day where everything looks clean from a distance. He picked up the phone and called the city's insurance carrier. "We have a problem." The insurance adjuster asked him to summarize that he did. There was a long silence on the other end. "Send me everything. We're moving to settlement immediately. We haven't even filed a response yet. We're not filing a response. We're settling. Today." Inside the police department, the panic was slower but more corrosive. Chief Bill City called an emergency meeting with his command staff. The conference room smelled like stale coffee and the kind of sweat that comes from stress, not exertion. The blinds were drawn. The door was locked. "How did this get past us?" No one answered. "I'm asking a direct question. How did we not know he was doing this?" Lieutenant Briggs from Internal Affairs spoke first. "There were no formal complaints on file." None. A few women mentioned him in passing during unrelated calls. Dispatch noted it. "We flagged it for review." But without a formal complaint. So we knew. We had indications. And we did nothing. The room went silent. The air conditioning kicked on. The vent above the table rattled. Someone coughed. "Do we have his camera footage?" "No, sir. He never activated it. For the entire shift. For the entire month." Chief City closed his eyes. "Do we have the victim's recording?" Her attorney provided a copy. "It's time-stamped. It's clear. And it's uploaded to multiple servers. So we can't claim technical issues." "What's our exposure?" Briggs slid a single sheet of paper across the table. It was a preliminary liability assessment from the city's legal team. Federal Civil Rights Violation. 18 U.S.C. Section 242 Fourth Amendment Unlawful Seizure 14th Amendment Due Process Violation Failure to Intervene. Supervisory Liability. Municipal Liability under Manel v. Department of Social Services Estimated Compensatory Damages. $400, $000, $600, $000 Estimated Punitive Damages. $200, $000, $400, $000 Estimated Legal Fees. If litigated, $150, $000 plus Recommended Settlement Range. $650, $000, $750, $000. The chief read it twice. "She's a nurse." "Yes, sir." "She testifies in court." "Yes, sir." "And we've got 6 other victims who are going to come out of the woodwork the second this goes public. At least 6. Possibly more." The chief stood up. He walked to the door. He put his hand on the handle but didn't open it. "Terminate Holtzclaw. Immediately. No appeals. No union protection. He's done." "Sir, the union will." "I don't care what the union says. If we keep him employed for one more day, we're admitting we knew. Do it today." Daniel Holtzclaw was fired on April 9, 2019. He was arrested on June 18. The charges were staggering. 18 counts of sexual assault, forcible sodomy, and rape. 13 victims, all women of color, all targeted because Holtzclaw believed they wouldn't be believed. The trial lasted 6 weeks. Jani Liggins testified for 3 hours. She walked the jury through every moment of that night. Every word, every violation, every second of terror she'd controlled with precision and intellect. The defense tried to discredit her. They failed. On December 10, 2015, the jury returned a guilty verdict on all 18 counts. Daniel Holtzclaw collapsed in the courtroom. His family screamed. The bailiffs had to restrain him. The judge sentenced him to 263 years in prison. The city settled with Jani Liggins $4,100,000 that they settled with 5 other victims for a combined $5,700,000 that the insurance company withdrew coverage. The department's budget was gutted. Supervisors were demoted. Training protocols were rewritten. But the question remained. If you're watching this and thinking, that could never happen to me, you're wrong. Daniel Holtzclaw didn't target random people. He targeted people he thought the system wouldn't protect. People with records. People who lived in neighborhoods where complaints disappear. People who'd been taught that resistance is dangerous. Jani Liggins survived because she knew the law better than the officer trying to violate it. But most people don't. Most people don't know what articulable facts means. Most people don't know that you can record police in public. Most people don't know that an officer saying, "You're under arrest," doesn't make the arrest lawful. And the system relies on that ignorance. Because when people don't know their rights, those rights become irrelevant. When people don't document abuse, abuse becomes invisible. When people don't report crimes committed by police, those crimes become routine. Holtzclaw committed at least 18 assaults before someone stopped him. Not because no one knew, but because the people who knew didn't think they'd be believed. The lawsuits cost Oklahoma City $6,700,000. That's taxpayer money. Your money. Money that could have gone to schools, infrastructure, social services. Instead, it went to silence the victims of an officer the department had been warned about and didn't stop. At what point does ignorance become complicity? There's a reason officers like Holtzclaw operate at night. A reason they choose isolated locations. A reason they target people who are alone. Because darkness hides patterns. Isolation prevents witnesses. Vulnerability prevents resistance. But Jani Liggins understood something most people don't. Monsters rely on silence. And when you refuse to be silent, when you document, when you speak, when you demand accountability, the system that protects monsters starts to collapse. The FBI opened investigations into 18 other police departments after Holtzclaw's conviction. Not because those departments were uniquely corrupt, but because his case revealed what happens when the culture of silence meets the tools of power. Holtzclaw is currently serving his sentence at the Lexington Assessment and Reception Center in Oklahoma. He's appealed 4 times. Every appeal has been denied. Jani Liggins still works as a forensic nurse. She still testifies in court. She still collects evidence. And when she tells her story, she doesn't tell it for sympathy. She tells it as a warning. Because if it can happen to someone who knows the law, who knows their rights, who documented everything perfectly, what happens to everyone else? If you found this story valuable, consider subscribing. These stories matter. Not because they're shocking, but because they're real. And they're happening right now in cities across the country to people who don't have cameras, don't have lawyers, and don't have voices loud enough to be heard. Make yours louder. The only way the system changes is when silence becomes impossible.